Okay, Hari Om, good evening everybody. And it's really nice to be back because I think last time was when? It was a long time ago. But very nice to be back and speaking about something which I've never spoken about before. And that is the good thing. So when you suggested that, this should be the topic, I said, very good. I can actually try and think about what it is. Of course, I'm familiar with Shravan Maas and Adhik Maas, but really to speak about it from the academic or learned point of view, I had never done that before. So thank you for suggesting this topic. It's a nice topic. So the heading or the title of this talk is When Time Becomes Sacred. Okay, and this is a very important idea in terms of our Sanatan Dharma. In Sanatan Dharma, time is a very special thing. And especially when we think about what is time, what is the experience of time in our lives, and what are we going to do with time? And especially when you get older like me, and thinking that, okay, how many years have I got left now? And thinking about time in that way. And where does time actually lead us into thinking about things? Okay. So, for example, if a very dear friend of mine, in fact, very sad, is that he is about 90 years old. He had gone to India, and he came back, and he started having a bit of issues, challenges with his body, and then he went to see the doctor, and doctor says, this is really something serious, and you are in 4-stage cancer. We don't know how much you've got time to now stay on this planet. Start getting your family together and spend the rest of your time just focusing on that. Now, this is what I mean by time. We don't know. We don't know what is going to happen next. And therefore, what our Sanatan Dharma says about time is of the essence. And here we are going to talk about this one Adhik Maas, where we get extra time, as it were. We get extra time, and what is that extra time going to be used for? That becomes the important question. Okay? But that question has already been answered by our masters, by our gurus, by our scriptures, because they say time is of the essence and time is sacred. And therefore, this is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about Shravan Maas, Adhik Maas, which is the extra month which we get every 3.5 years. And then talking about two very different divinities, Shiva and Purushottam, and how they come together when we have the Adhik Maas. So this is basically what I'm going to be talking about, sacred time, how this becomes sacred time for devotion, purification, and renewal. And first of all, to kind of understand why sacred time matters. So I just told you a string of a story about my friend. And why sacred time matters is, it is a sacred question. If life gives us an extra month, would we fill it or we consecrate it? This is the important question which we can ask ourselves. What are you going to do with that one extra month in your life? And modern life, of course, we think in terms of, okay, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I've got this extra, time with me now. I'm going to become more productive. I'll see more people. I'll do more things. I'll go here, there, and everywhere. Actually, when I practice psychotherapy as well, so many clients come to me, and they say, I'm feeling very depressed. And then I say, okay, but I have retired just 6 months ago, and I feel I don't have anything to kind of focus on. Life has become meaningless. Why has life become meaningless? Is because you have been so busy with doing what you were doing and become so identified with what you are doing, so that when you step out of that role, It's like life is empty, nothing to do. So I slowly take them through understanding that particular perspective, and then take them through understanding how you can create meaning in your life. Because without meaning, we are all lost. And therefore, we fill up our time with what is meaningful. We do things which are meaningful for us. And that is how we spend time. And modern life says, okay, you got extra time, you do whatever you feel like doing, what is meaningful for you. What Hindu tradition actually tells us, there is a deeper question. How can time become sacred? And there is a deeper question to that as well. Why should sacredness matter? Why should sacredness matter? Okay. Anybody tell me why sacredness should matter? Okay, good karma, right? Okay. Right, okay. So if we look at it from another point of view, is what does Sanatana Dharma tell us? What is the question and quest of life? Why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing while we are here? That's a deeper question, right? Is what is life all about? What is life all about in the sense that what are we supposed to be doing? And there's only one answer. What is that? Starts with ma, moksha. Okay? Life is all about attaining moksha. Sanatana Dharma says that. Doesn't tell us, okay, there's moksha, you have to kind of go to the ashram, you have to go here, there, and everywhere, and then you kind of give up life. No, it is not about giving up life. It is about asking that question and saying, sorry, come out. Asking that question and saying, what am I doing about my life? And the goal of attaining this liberation from life, and how do I go about attaining that liberation? And therefore, sacredness of time comes into our picture. Okay? So what it means, the purpose of human life is liberation. And we should all be oriented towards attaining that liberation. And therefore, every moment, that orientation should take us half a step, one step towards that liberation. And therefore, every second counts, every minute counts, every year counts, every month counts. And therefore, time is sacred because it gives us an opportunity to not only devote ourselves, purify ourselves, but to reach out towards liberation. Whether we attain it or not doesn't matter, but how time becomes sacred is because time is all about attaining that final goal of human existence, which is liberation. So the Hindu response, don't merely spend time, just spend time. We spend time, right? How do we spend time? Just like we spend money, we spend time. We spend time. We have to offer time. We have to offer. Offer makes it more sacred. Now, what do we mean by offering? I'll explain a bit later on. Do not treat extra time as empty. Turn it towards devotion and reflection. In other words, whatever is there in terms of what we understand as time, this extra time, whatever time is available to us, that orientation towards the question and the quest for life is what we are looking for here. And therefore turn it towards devotion, turn it towards reflection. Now this Adhik Maas or Purushottam Maas, these are additional time given to us, and this additional time is a time for transformation. It's a time for sacredness. It's a time to become oriented towards the goal of liberation and therefore transformed into grace. How many of you observe Adhik Maas? Anybody? Shravan? Okay?
I'm not all people do, they're a bit shy.
Okay, I'm sure you do. Anyway, the point is that this is Adhik Maas, Purushottam Maas has got a special significance because that is an extra month given to us every 3 years. Now, I will explain the whole framework within which this thinking is based, okay? So this is just to kind of understand why time matters and why should it be sacred and why should sacred time matter to us. Okay, so how can the time given to us become sacred? That is really the question. How do we make it sacred? How do we make our moments of a time, our minutes, our hours to be sacred? So entering the atmosphere of Shravan Maas. Now I'm going to first of all talk about Shravan Maas because that is, a kind of combination of two things which we'll talk about later in terms of the Adhik Maas and the Shravan Maas. So the monsoon is a sacred image, right? Everything which happens in our Sanatana Dharma is connected to spirituality, it's connected to religion, including the seasons and including the monsoon. Just before I left June the 4th from Kochi, from Kerala, where I've been staying for the last 3-4 years. Monsoon is an amazing time there. I know it's a lot of rain. Some people think, oh my God, this rain is too much, too much, too much. But it just kind of changes the whole consciousness of people. So it was supposed to start on the 27th or the 28th of May, but it was delayed for 2, 3, 4 days. So it just started before I left, which was June the 4th. And this monsoon can be seen as a sacred image. How do we see it? We see it in terms of, it has been very hot. I mean, we are talking about, record-breaking temperature here, 30 what? 35, 37. This is what we normally have every day in Kochi. 35 degrees is the normal temperature over the last, it starts from April towards May, it is extremely hot. You can't even step out. We tell the students, don't step out. Okay, within these times, don't step out. Stay inside, stay in the corridor, stay in the classes. So this is the time when the heat is there. And with that heat, now comes the rain. And it renews the earth, it awakens the greenery. Because it is now pouring down, and that earth which has become hard, it has become dry, it is now being nourished. So monsoon becomes a time for nourishment. And I know all these things because I have experienced wet soil, the fragrance which you immediately get. And there's some grounds behind where I stay. So immediately you can feel that fragrance coming. Just as the raindrops start falling, temple bells. There is a 500-year-old temple just 3 minutes from my house. I go there almost every day. Wonderful, right? Wonderful in terms of, how the temple bells are there during this monsoon month, and mantra, kirtan, bhajan going on all the time in the temples. And the nature itself appears to perform abhisheka upon the world. Abhishek. We know what abhishek is, right? Okay? And we know that Shivling, for example, we do abhishek on that, which means pouring down the panchamrit, whatever it is that you have decided. And it is like Bhagwan is pouring down this water upon earth as a kind of abhishek upon the whole place, which is experiencing this absolute wonderful monsoon. So this Shravan Maas, which is then the month of that monsoon, devotees offer water to Shiva and observe fast, vows and prayers. And this temple, which is a 500-year-old temple, is actually a Shiva temple. Lots and lots of activities going on all the time, but here it becomes even more. So devotees offer water to Shiva, families renew their religious memory through rituals, festivals, songs. Rituals are going on all the time. But here they are even more intensified during this Shravan month. And the outer season becomes an invitation to inner cleansing. Okay, so there is a kind of cleansing going on when the water is, falling in the monsoon. There's a kind of cleansing going on. But what it is inviting us to do is to focus our attention on the inner cleansing. This inner cleansing, which we'll talk about just now. But really speaking, the outer and the inner are connected together. Just like everything in Sanatana Dharma, outer, inner, connected together. And especially when we talk about monsoon, when we talk about time, when we talk about the seasons, all these are kind of interconnected with the inner and the outer. Okay? So, Shravan is the sacred time through purification. And the Adhik Maas or the Purushottam Maas, that extra month which we get, is the sacred time through grace. And we'll see what grace means in terms of where this grace is coming from. Okay? So this is a kind of entering the atmosphere of Shravan Maas, and now we kind of come to it. That was just an introduction to kind of give the context to what I'm going to be talking about in terms of, the Shravan Maas, Adhik Maas, and the Purushottam Maas, and the grace of Purushottam Maas. So here we are going to think a bit about the vision of time, because the extra month, where is it created from? How does it arise? What is the kind of connection between the lunar calendar and the solar calendar? How does it kind of change when after, say, 3 years, we get an extra month? Okay, I think most of you will understand that, but just to kind of put it down in terms of what we are talking about. So it is more than the clock. Time is more than the clock. Okay? And time, if you look at it from a psychological point of view, which I tend to do with my students, because I teach psychology, and particularly Indian psychology, which is based on the scriptures. Time is something which can be very subjectively experienced. Right? There is an objective time, there is a subjective time. If you're not interested in any of these things, time will kind of go very slowly. But if you're focused, want to understand something, time will go very fast. Okay, so this is the subjective component of our experience of time. So time is not only a sequence of dates, duties, and deadlines. It is much more than that. And the Hindu calendar asks us every day. I am sure some of us remember those, what do you call them? Dattas. You got one. Okay. So tell me, what does it show on one page? Oh, your mom reads it for you. Okay.
It shows the tithi.
Yeah, it shows the tithi. That's right. Yeah. Chogaliya, that's right. That's right. Which month is going on? That's right. Yeah. Okay.
It shows the Hindu calendar.
That's right. That's right. This is the Hindu calendar.
And it also shows the English one.
Right.
This is a clarification that where is this month? We don't see it.
You don't see it. Yeah.
Months in the year.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
Hindu calendar.
Yeah.
gives us that extra.
So this is what I want to explain, is that how is this kind of fitting it together, right? So this is the datta, which we, every year we used to get one, and then we kind of see every day what is the day today. Is it, what is the phase of the moon? Is the moon starting? Is it the new moon? Is it the, full moon, Purnima, or whatever it is? Slowly by slowly we begin to understand that every day is connected to some kind of religious orientation. Every day there will be something on that page which is relevant for the day. There will be something which is telling you, now you start fasting, because it is Ekadashi. Ekadashi, today is the time for fasting. See how each day is related to something or the other to your religious spiritual life. Okay? And that is the lunar calendar. It's what kind of day or month it is, and then also distinguish all these different things which we have to do. Fasting, worship, remembrance, restraint, celebration. So there are certain chanting which we take on certain days, because the phases of the moon require for us to do some extra chanting or something, right? So it makes this clear on the calendar that this is now the auspicious time for doing this, that, and the other. This is the inauspicious time for doing other things, right? You're not supposed to do certain things. So in other words, this calendar is like a spiritual map. Think of it not as dates and times and things going on, but think of it as a kind of spiritual map for your day-to-day things, a spiritual map for the month, a spiritual map for the whole year. See how the concept of time is different. Okay? This conceptualization of time in terms of the connection with religious and religious ideas and thinking and doing is really what is behind this kind of calendar, which was 5,000 years ago. These are the things which, we have kind of come to see. Sacred time is linked with the cosmic rhythms with human practice. That is the underlying principle. Okay? Anybody know what a rhythm is? Rhythm. Rhythm. It's a Sanskrit word which means cosmic order. There is an order in the whole cosmos. There is an order in the whole cosmos, and another word for that is Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma can be seen as this universal dharma, this universal order which is there. And the whole point of us individuals doing our swadharma is to connect our swadharma to the Sanatan Dharma. And how to do it? Through this rhythm of life, through this daily kind of practices, through this calendar which shows you what to do today. Okay, it's like a small diary which tells you, okay, now today you have to start fasting. Okay, so sacred time linked with the cosmic order, linked to our individual lives, linked to what we have to do in terms of our religiosity. And ritual life follows lunar phases, solar transitions, seasons and festivals. So you can see how sacred time is kind of connected with our religious life. And not only that, but we've got the lunar phases, the lunar calendar. We have got the solar calendar. We got the Gregorian calendar, which we now follow in the West. But there is a solar calendar, there is a lunar calendar. There are the seasons which go according to the lunar calendar, and there are festivals which come during this time when all different kinds of festivals are coming up, right? So for example, Makar Sankranti. This is now showing of the transition of the sun in the constellation of Makar. This is a transition, and it means something for us in terms of our day-to-day life as well. Okay? So ritual life is following lunar phases, it is following these solar transitions, it is seasons, festivals, all connected to time. This is the vision of time. Okay? So there is a huge kind of universal vision of time, but there is also the individual vision of time for you and me, connected to the bigger vision of the cosmic order. And then the calendar becomes the guide for dharma, devotion, and renewal and purification. Okay? So for example, if we talk about just one thing called fasting. How many people fast here? At least once a month, once a week? Yeah, you fast. So yeah, fasting means what? Okay? And there's a whole kind of philosophy behind that fasting. There's a kind of vision behind what fasting means. Fasting is not just about keeping away from food or only eating certain types of food. Fasting is something much more deeper than that. But this is the time, this is the calendar. The calendar will show us this is the time to fast. And you know what? The fasting is related to the rhythm of the body. And the rhythm of the body is connected to the rhythm of the lunar cycles. Okay, so all these things are connected. And the most highest level of thinking about this is what? See, in Sankhya Yoga, we talk about Purusha and Prakriti. We talk about Purusha and Prakriti. And when Purusha and Prakriti come together from their unmanifest form, they form this whole universe, the Big Bang. according to Sankhya tradition, comes about because Purusha and Prakriti come together. Before they were unmanifest, something makes them to come together, and the whole universe comes into being. And what we call this, what you see right in front of you, is Prakriti. Prakriti which is infused with consciousness. You are Prakriti, I am Prakriti, this glass is Prakriti, this table is Prakriti, floor, this is all Prakriti. And Prakriti is what we are consisting of. So when I teach Ayurveda, I tell them how this Prakriti is actually connected to your doshas. And how these doshas are changing because the Prakriti, outer Prakriti is changing. What you should not eat in winter, what you should eat in summer. Why? Because the Prakriti has changed. And if you don't connect your Prakriti to that Prakriti which is changing, you'll be in trouble. Okay, so Ayurvedic is a science which is absolutely wonderful in the sense that it connects these things together. Prakriti. And therefore, when we talk about Prakriti and the change of Prakriti, which is really nothing but a calendar and time, and how changes come about in time, then we begin to understand the depth of what we are talking about here. Okay, it does not just measure time, but it is a time for sanctification. It is a time for making it sacred for ourselves. And it gives us the full opportunity to how to do that. Okay. So now, how does this Adhik Maas actually appear? So we have seen that there is a bigger cycle, the cosmic order is there, and then there is a lunar cycle, there is a solar cycle, and how we can think about where this Adhik Maas is coming from. Okay, so this is called the lunisolar calendar. The moon gives the rhythm of the months, the tithis, like we talk about in that, Datta, there is always what is the tithi today. Fast and vows and many different festivals. Okay, so moon is setting the pace for us to do what to do on a daily basis, and then the sun keeps the year aligned with the season and the solar transitions. Okay, so the moon has got its own cycle, and sun has got its own cycle. Well, sun is actually fixed, but the moon, the earth moving around, gives us a certain cycle, which is a sun's solar cycle. And the Hindu calendar listens to both the moon and the sun. Why does it have to listen to both of them? Because the lunar cycle is kind of synchronizing itself with the solar cycle to a great extent, but it goes out of synchronization. And when it goes out of synchronization, it means that the seasons will not appear on time. Things will begin to become different on a daily basis as well. So therefore, both these need to be taken into account to give us the orientation towards our spiritual religious life. And here, the difference that accumulates. Now, how is this extra days coming? So the lunar months, 12 lunar months take about 354 days. The solar year is 365 days. Can you see now the difference? How many days? 11 days. Okay? So that 11 days, when it starts accumulating year after year, each year, after nearly 3 years, how many days accumulated? 1 month, 1 solar month. Okay? So this becomes almost 1 lunar month. Almost. Okay? And therefore 1 lunar month is then added to the calendar, and this is called the extra month, the Adhik Maas. So you see this Adhik Maas or Purushottam Maas comes every 3 years, right? And this is the extra time we get. Extra time according to the lunar calendar which we should be following really, and that lunar calendar is really connected to our day-to-day spiritual religious life. And therefore if it starts going out of sync, everything goes out of sync. So we need to kind of make room for this extra month in the lunar calendar to allow this synchronization to come back into place. So the Adhik Maas then restores the harmony. It restores the harmony between what and what, between the sun and the moon. And Purushottam Maas is the one that extra month consecrates this harmony. It makes it sacred. It makes that month to be sacred. Okay? So now if we go a bit deeper into understanding these lunar building blocks, okay, so this is according to the moon. So we also mentioned a tithi. What is a tithi? Tithi is a lunar day based on the angular distance between the sun and the moon. This is like, what is the angle between the sun and the moon? And based on that angular distance, then this tithi or the lunar day becomes the one which is mentioned on that calendar called the tithi. It does not always match an ordinary civil day. Okay, so it doesn't match the day which we experience in terms of the solar calendar. This is why festival observances may vary by place and calendar and calculation. Okay, now do you see why if I'm living in India, it will be different from living here? What is the difference? The difference is the place on the earth will form a different angular relationship to the moon. And therefore there is a slight shift in terms of the timing between the two places. And this timing is also important. Everybody follow astrology? Who follows astrology? Nobody. Oh, there's one person there. Okay. Astrology, the place and the time you're born becomes very, very important. Okay, this is another very fascinating subject. Okay, people say astrology is rubbish. It's not rubbish. Actually, there is a logic behind it. And what is the logic? Actually, it is coming from the Vedas themselves. These are part of the Vedas. Astrology is part of the Vedangas. And it was meant to give you some knowledge about yourself. Okay? But that's a different subject. Maybe next time we can talk about that. But the main thing is that this variation and calculation between the Earth and the Moon and the angle will mean that different places on the planet Earth will have different times according to what they should be doing. Second thing is Paksha. Shukla Paksha is a bright half new moon towards the full moon. Okay, so new moon, it starts off with a bright half. I mean, with the full moon, it's a bright half. Krishna Paksha is the dark half, which is full moon towards the new moon. Okay, so full moon going towards the new moon is Krishna Paksha because it becomes darker and darker and darker, whereas the other one is becoming lighter and lighter and lighter. So new moon, as you know, is very slight vision or the visibility of that moon. It's very slight. It's like what do you call it? Crescent moon. So it goes to the full moon. This is a Shukla Paksha. So we do things in Shukla Paksha which we don't do in Krishna Paksha. Right? So again, related to our religious festivals, our religious things going on, and the fortnight shapes fasting, worship, and ritual timing. So these are the two halves, as it were, and this fortnight, 2 weeks, will determine what to be doing during that half of the tithi. Then the lunar month is built around the moon cycle, and its religious meaning is tied to tithis, vows, festivals, and observances. And that was the whole point of this, Hindu calendar. We see this daily basis. It is telling you exactly what the tithi is, what the paksha is, what is the mass, and and so that we can also get knowledge about, what are the important festivals which are now there, important days on which we should be fasting or not fasting, etc. All these are related to the lunar calendar. Okay, so this is, then we come to the solar side of the calendar, and we know Rashi. Everybody know their Rashi? Yeah? Tula Rashi, okay. That's why your name starts with Ra, just like mine starts with Ra, because I'm also Tula Rashi. So Rashi is important, okay? Rashi is important, and the sun's apparent movement is tracked through the 12 zodiacal signs or Rashis. Okay? This is now the calendar which we are used to, and the solar transition keeps the calendar connected with the rhythm of the seasons. Right? So this is the rhythm of the seasons, and solar transition actually tell us what the season is coming up. And this prevents festivals from drifting away from their seasonal context. So when the season is there, we know that this is the kind of zodiacal sign in which the sun has entered. This is the season. This is what is going to be practiced during this season. or what is not to be practiced. Sankranti. Sankranti means it occurs when the sun enters the new Rashi. So this is a transition. Sankranti means this is a transition period of the sun moving from one particular Rashi to the next one, to the new Rashi. I gave you the example of Makar Sankranti, which is where it goes into the Makar Rashi. There are usually 12 Sankrantis in a solar year because we've got 12 signs. And these solar transitions are central to identifying the Adhik Maas. The solar transition become important for identifying where this extra month is going to be. Okay? And the moon structures the month, the sun anchors the year. Okay, so lunar cycle based on the month, solar cycle based on the year. So the rule of the Adhik Maas. So the ordinary pattern is one Sankranti occurs within one lunar month. Normally this is the rhythm it goes through. This is the harmony between the sun and the moon. Okay, and so what we have is one transition taking place in every 1 month, in every lunar month. The lunar month then receives its normal place within the yearly cycle. Okay, so it normally kind of happening, but soon what happens? It starts drifting away. Because of what? Why does it drift away? That's right. Because the lunar year is 11 days less than the solar. So it begins to drift. Within 1 year, it has drifted 11 days. Now that 11 days begins to make a difference, right? So this is the place where normally it would go along the transitions and in the Rashis and normal place within the yearly cycle. This keeps the lunar devotion and the solar season broadly aligned. So it's broadly aligned, except it starts going out of sync, as it were, because those extra days which are there. So what is the Adhik pattern? Full lunar month passes without any Sankranti. In other words, there is no solar transition in that month. Why? Because it has drifted apart. The lunar and the solar cycle have drifted apart, so it doesn't match now. This becomes your Adhik Maas. It becomes the extra month, which comes after how many years? 3 years. After 3 years, we begin to see it has drifted apart enough for an extra month to be given. And in this lunar month, there is no Sankranti, it becomes Adhik Maas. And there is a story about Adhik Maas, which I'll tell you just now. And the extra month is therefore an astronomical necessity. Why? Because otherwise it'll keep on going out of sync and we don't know where we are. Okay? So it is not an arbitrary addition, but there is a logic behind the lunar cycle, the solar cycle, the drifting apart of them, those 11 days in a year, and then drifting apart means that all the things go out of sync. All right, so this is the idea, is that this Adhik Maas has to be included. Otherwise that harmony will be lost between the solar and the lunar calendar. And the calendar corrects time, the tradition consecrates that correction. So when this extra month comes about, Adhik Maas, which is also called Purushottam Maas, we get some extra time. I remember how my mother used to be so excited. Oh, this year we've got Purushottam Maas. Very special month, which she used to really look forward to. Why? Because that is the time for focusing your spiritual, religious energies, practices during that month. Because you get 4 times the result. It is a bonus. So whatever you do in Purushottam Maas, Adhik Maas, you get 4 times the benefit. Okay? So that's why people look forward to that. So naming the extra month. Now, you have to name it something, right? This is a 13th month with one permanent name. It is not, because it keeps on drifting about, right? It's not one particular place. So what happens, it's Lipista Luna in which it occurs, and then examples include Adhik Shravan, Adhik Jyeshta, Adhik Ashad. Okay, so depends where it falls, that extra month, it will be given that name according to where it is falling in the lunar cycle. So Adhik Shravan is, which we all know. And then the regular month that follows may be also called the Nija or Shuddha month. Or the Shuddha month means now it is now gone back into harmony. It is now synchronized, and therefore it is called Nija or Shuddha. And thus one may hear Adhik Shravan followed by Nija Shravan. Okay? So this is how it is kind of placed into that particular place in the calendar, so that that becomes the extra month, and it is given the name according to whatever is going on at that time in the solar calendar. This explains why Shravan Adhik Maas occurs only in specific years. Shravan and Adhik Maas coming together is a rare occurrence. And when it does come, people go crazy, because this is now the time to really focus your energy on your spiritual religious life so that you get huge benefit out of it. Maybe a lifetime of things you can get within those 2 months. Okay, so it becomes very important. So Shravan Adhik Maas kind of comes after, I think, about every 12 years or so. So this regional system, then, there are different regional system according to, where you're based, and counts months from full moon to full moon. And then the Amanta calendars count month from new moon to new moon. Okay, these are small technicalities, but it means that, we recognize that you can measure it from month to full moon, or the new moon to the new moon. These are regional variations in India. So now what I've been talking about is astronomy. How the lunar cycle, astronomically speaking, is connected to the solar cycle. How is it that we get an extra month out of this particular, cycles coming together? Now, how do we then think about this from a religious point of view, a theological point of view? So the technical reason, okay, this needs harmonization. As I was saying, otherwise sun and moon will drift apart, and they'll drift apart until we don't know what is going on. And why it is important in Sanatana Dharma is because the lunar cycle is related to our day-to-day religious activities. It is kind of orientation on a daily basis. This is what you should be doing. This is what you should not be doing. And therefore, harmonization is important, and that is why the Adhik Maas restores this balance between months and the seasons, and the adjustment arises from cosmic order. It's not a mere convention that we just put an extra thing there. It is related to these cycles. Okay? It's an astronomical fact, rather than somebody deciding to put an extra month there. So what is the spiritual response? This extra month is dedicated to devotion, self-discipline, restraint, charity, dhanam, and reflection. This is now this extra month always dedicated to all these different activities, religious, spiritual activities, which we normally do on a daily basis or a monthly basis. But here we have got a concentrated way of doing this. And the Adhik Maas becomes Purushottam Maas, time offered to the Supreme. Purushottam is supreme. Krishna describes himself as Purushottam. Chapter number 15, which I'll talk about also. But this is Purushottam Maas, time offered to the Supreme and nothing else. Okay? This is the Adhik Maas. And the calendar correction becomes a sacred opportunity. So this extra month is now the sacred opportunity for us to focus on that. And therefore, you can see now the wonderful logic behind all these things. Beginning to see this extra month, Adhik Maas, where does it come from? How does it arise? What is it related to? What is the cycles which is then brought into synchronization, into harmony? And how does it help us in our spiritual journey? All these are kind of connected together. So Adhik Maas is the calendar taking a sacred breath. Okay, so it's taking now let's have a breathe in, breathe out, so that we can now harmonize our body and our mind, right? Just like when I tell my clients, sit down, okay, they come from very agitated. And in psychotherapy, clients come from all over the place, and sometimes they've had some kind of experience which has triggered them off. So I tell them, okay, close your eyes, just for 2 minutes, and just breathe in and out. Focus on your breathing. And soon the mind harmonization comes between the body and the mind. This is what is happening with the synchronization of the lunar and the solar cycles. Okay? So let's now look more detailed. Shravan Maas, okay, the month of rain, and Shiva. This is the month of Shiva. and it is a month of renewal as well. Okay? And this is the beloved sacred month. Shravan usually arrives within the monsoon season and the greening of the earth, because the earth has been now dry for some time. So now it is given all this, and it carries the sound of rains, bells, bhajans, mantra, as I mentioned in the introduction, creates a devotional atmosphere of freshness and return. And it is the month of Shiva. And Shravan is especially associated with Lord Shiva, and Mondays or Shravan Somvar are really observed with fasting, prayer and temple worship. So it is a month in which Shiva is worshipped, and especially because Mondays belong to Shiva. Okay? Somvar is Shiva's month, day, and therefore that even becomes even more powerful to do something on Mondays. So on Shravan Somvar, people observe fasting, prayer. Sometimes we will just dedicate the whole day to chanting and prayer. And devotees seek purification, grace, steadiness in their mind, the inner cooling which needs to take place, right? Because sometimes we get very agitated within ourselves. There's a lot of heat in the mind. We need to cool it down, right? So therefore the Abhishek on the Shivling is because now things have become very hot. We need to put that Abhishek, right? So like what we say, when we are having an argument, somebody gets very angry. What do we say? Go and have a shower. Cool yourself down, right? Okay. So this is what it means. How do we cool ourselves down? How do we, have that inner cooling? So this is the inner monsoon. The outer rains become a symbol of the inward renewal and cleansing. Okay. So this is how this is. You can see how the season is related to the spiritual life, and how that spiritual life is all about inner cleansing, inner purification, inner discipline, and so on. It's like the whole Bhagavad Gita has got a whole transformation track which it describes. And that whole process of inner purification, the process of perfection, which I talked about before in one of these lectures, portraits of perfection in the Bhagavad Gita. How to reach that perfection, and then having reached that perfection, how to transcend perfection. This is all part of our daily kind of ritual and rhythm and practice. And therefore this month actually becomes so important. Shravan Maas becomes important because the energies are kind of, there for us to take the opportunity to gain more out of that month. So devotional practice, right? So what do we do on Shravan Somvar? Fasting, observe fasting, simplified eating on Mondays. Simplified eating. Okay. You know what Gujaratis tend to do? They will have a feast instead of a fast, right? They fast the whole day, then at the end of it, sometimes there is a feast. This is my experience anyway, I don't know about other people, but many devotees will fast on this day, on Mondays, and the vrata disciplines desire attention, intention. That's the whole point. I was asking, why do we fast? Fasting is a discipline, okay? Discipline of desire. Because desire pushes us to do this, that, and the other, and go and grab the food open the fridge and get this, that, and the other every 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. Discipline. Discipline, inner discipline. Pay attention. Focus your attention. Not on everything all around you, but focus your attention on this one thing. How can I make this moment to be sacred? And having the intention. What intention? Intention of making this moment sacred. Okay? So this is the vrata. And I'm sure many of you do these vratas on a regular basis. But it turns body into a participant in devotion. Okay? Body, mind, intellect. All these three needs to be coordinated together and oriented towards our religious journey. You see, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, the Ashtanga Yoga, is absolutely wonderful because it takes care of your external transaction, yam niyam. It takes care of your body, asana. It takes care of your pranayam. It takes care of your mind, pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. It is a complete package to take you to the highest transcendental experience, nirvikalpa samadhi. And this is part of that journey to take care of the body and the mind and the intellect and turn all of them towards the divine. And that is what it is. Temple worship, so fasting and the vow we take, temple worship, devotees visiting Shiva temples, perform darshan, offer prayer, Rudraksha Abhisheka, mantra japa, collective worship, deepen the sacred atmosphere. See that temple which I was telling you just 3 minutes down the road from me. Absolute temple worship. And this temple, so many devotees. I mean, the whole ground is packed up. Right from 4:30 in the morning, there are quite a few of these, Brahmins who stayed nearby me. And I can hear them, 4:30 in the morning, they get up and say, start going, wearing those dhotis and so on. Very, very devoted. So in Shravan Maas, during this time, all of them kind of flock there and do all kinds of, these pujas and temple worship which is going on. And the community enters a shared rhythm of devotion. So even the temple has many things, programs which it does. Programs of music, programs of bhajans, kirtan, famous people coming to sing there. A wonderful atmosphere there. And then mantra, because mantra Om Namah Shivaya is Shiva's mantra. And therefore, chanting this mantra is a way of returning to our inner stillness. Okay? And mantra is really Shiva's mantra. And we know that Shiva is a meditator, he's a master meditator. And he is the embodiment of stillness of the mind. And that stillness of the mind can be attained by this mantra. And if you're doing this on a regular basis, you will see the difference. You'll see the difference as soon as you chant the mantra, the mind becomes focused and it becomes, 3 things begin to happen. Actually 6 things when we do this on a regular basis. It is called Shanti, Santosh, Samadhan, single-pointedness, stillness, and the subtleness of the mind. This is the effect of purification through mantra. Mantra japa gives you all these wonderful things. Imagine the peace in the mind. Nowadays, peacelessness, all kinds of things are going on in our minds. There is no santosh, there is no contentment. We want to run here, there, and everywhere. We are not contented with anything. Right? And attention span has become shorter and shorter. So what it means is these are very precious things, not only for the body, but also for mental health. And that's why I give my client these exercises to do with the mind and with the breath. And with the mind and the breath, they derive a lot of benefit out of that. Okay? So this is returning back to stillness, stillness of the mind. And the restless mind bows before the sacred. Through the mantra japa, it becomes focused, it becomes very much like the mind is becoming more and more still. Then of course there's the Abhisheka, an offering to Shiva. Water is the sacred offering. Water is poured over Shivalinga, as I was saying, as an act of reverence and surrender. Right? Surrender is implied in terms of what we are offering. When the water Abhisheka is poured over Shivalinga, the rain bathes the earth, the devotee bathes Shiva. Like I was saying, the monsoon is like a big Abhisheka happening outside. And this is happening inside the temple, where we become part of that Abhisheka and offer this to the Shivlinga. Nature and ritual mirror each other. This is what I was telling about Prakriti. Sanatana Dharma is full of these kind of connections which are there between the outer and the inner. between the outer Prakriti and the inner Prakriti. And if you can get this balance and get the connection and get the harmonization right, it is said that we can live for 120 years. Okay, no need for any of these funny chemicals. All you need to do is understand the rhythm of the Prakriti in the body, rhythm of the Prakriti outside. Traditional offerings, milk, yogurt, honey, ghee, all these things are offered in terms of the puja, Abhisheka, offering to Shiva, Bilva leaves, especially sacred to Shiva, and the outer act expresses the inner devotion. Okay? This is what we are now focusing on, our inner devotion, mantra japa, with the outer Abhisheka, it all comes together. And what is the inner meaning of this? May my anger be cooled. May my mind be washed. May my life be offered. Okay? This is the inner thought process while we are doing the Abhisheka, right? And we know that we are all afflicted by this, what we call the emotions of the ego. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. All they're battling with this ego emotions. So here we are saying, may all my ego emotion be cooled. And if those ego emotions are cooled, the mind becomes silent, it becomes still. This is what we are aiming for. So you can see the connection between lunar cycle, solar cycle, Adhik Maas, Purushottam Maas, and Adhik Maas and Shravan Maas linked to Shiva, Shiva linked to Shivlinga, Shivlinga to Abhisheka, Abhisheka to the mind. Wonderful, isn't it? This is what this kind of connection is there. So fasting, restraint, purification. Fasting is not just denial of food. It creates a space between desire and action. There needs to be that space. And the intention is then oriented in the right way when we pause for a little while between the desire and the action. And it asks whether appetite, habit, or craving rules the mind, or it is the other way around. Is the craving ruling the mind, or the mind ruling the craving? Simplifying life. Reduced consumption can refine attention. Simpler food, speech, habits quietens the restlessness. Restraint becomes a form of inner purification as well. And here we got a psychological meaning, which means if the body is simplified in this way, through this kind of actions, so the mind becomes full of clarity. It becomes clear. Mind becomes clear. Otherwise, it can remain clouded. So the many faces of Shiva. Now, you know why the attraction for me personally for Shiva is because he's a householder. He's got a family. But he is an ascetic. He's like a householder sannyasi, which is my aim, to become a householder sannyasi. Been trying for a long time. Householder sannyasi. So Shiva becomes very attractive to me because he knows how to deal with his two sons, he knows how to deal with Parvati and so on. So ascetic and householder, meditating yogi on the Mount Kailash. Okay, so next time you go to Kailash, you know what to kind of think about. This is Bhagavan Shri Shiva. He's also husband of Parvati, father of Ganesha and Kartikeya, and he holds renunciation and relationship together. How to kind of hold these two things together? Renunciation and relationship. Because renunciation pulls you apart. Relationship brings you together. How to maintain that balance? This is what Shiva represents. And he's a lord of transformation, associated with yoga, dance, dissolution, liberation. Confronts the ego, impermanence, desire, death, and truth. Destroys ignorance, not life. So another name of Shiva, Ashutosh. Shiva is easily pleased. You just offer him something small, he gets easily pleased and gives you benefit of that. Sincere heart, a little water, simple mantra is enough. Even that one bilva leaf was enough for him to bless. Okay, so we don't have to do much. Makes it easier for us. Okay, so now related to the religious is the cultural landscape of Shravan. Okay, Shravan Maas, we get Naga Panchami, uh, reverence offered to the Nagas, hidden life of the earth. So you can see again how culture, religion, spirituality all come together in terms of the connection with the Shravan Maas. So that all these cultural activities are taking place. Naga Panchami, we have festival evokes fertility, protection, ecology, mystery, reminds us nature is not merely a resource but sacred presence. And then Haryali Tej, greenery, song, swing, womanhood, marital devotion celebrated, joy of the monsoon becomes embodied in community and ritual. And then cultural carries theology to beauty and celebration. See how religion, kind of festivals, all these are so much connected together. Right? And you can see religious significance in all these festivals and what it's supposed to mean in terms of our own religious journey. Family observance as well. Raksha Bandhan, we are all familiar with. Purnima, Narali Purnima, local vows, regional festival, deepen the family memory. Okay, so not only is it about the individual, but it's also about the family coming together. So imagine the significance of Raksha Bandhan, right? What it means in terms of brother and sister getting together, in terms of that relationship. So all this becomes part of the Shravan Maas. And this is kind of going right to the level of the festival and the cultural landscape of Shravan Maas. Sorry? Gift is part of it, yeah, of course, of course. This is just an acknowledgement that yes, you have actually got to this protection. So Shravan is a lived religion. Beyond the temple, it lives in the kitchen, supposed to live in the kitchen, in the courtyards, in the rivers, in the songs, in all the pilgrimage routes, right? It is a living tradition. Very much a living tradition, carried through the water, the food, the water, the vows and the stories and the family rhythms and the family connections and all these festivals. And the sacred enters the ordinary life rather than remaining separate from it. This is a very important principle I keep on telling my students in the class. Don't think spirituality is separate from your life. It is spiritual. Bring spirituality into moment to moment of your life. Then every moment becomes a spiritual moment, rather than saying, okay, I will only do this thing in the morning, the rest of the time I will do what I want to do. Not like that. Sacred enters the ordinary life rather than sacred remaining separate from it. And in the Shravan Maas, this becomes even more important. Ecological gratitude, so there is part of the ecology as well. Environment, always respecting the environment. Again, prakriti to prakriti, right? Renews fields, rivers, trees, livelihoods. Shravan sacralizes the rainfall, fertility, dependence on nature. Gratitude becomes an ecological virtue. Okay, so this again, we can see our connection with the world around us is very important. The outer monsoon invites an inner monsoon of grace. Grace flowing inwards through our festivals and our rituals and our mantra and everything else. Okay, so the outer again connected to the inner. So now we got a little bit of this Samudra Manthan. Anybody know the story of this Samudra Manthan? Okay, so Samudra Manthan. And why this is important, why am I talking about this? You will see why I'm talking about this, because it's a kind of coming together of the Shravan Maas and Adhik Maas. Shiva and Vishnu coming together. Okay? Shiva and Purushottam coming together. And this is how it happens. Samudra Manthan, you must have heard this story. And this is the search for the nectar, right? So the Devas are kind of feeling they've lost vitality, they are not feeling well, something has gone wrong, and they're looking for this Amrita. Amrita is the nectar of vitality and immortality. So they want to find this out. So they go to Vishnu and Vishnu tells them where to find it. Nectar lies hidden in the depths of the cosmic ocean, right? And to obtain it, the ocean itself must be churned. Churning must take place in order for the nectar to come out. And there needs to be great cooperation, because Vishnu tells, the Devas, you won't be able to do it on your own. You need the Asuras as well. And the Asuras are, like the ego people, and the Devas are like the people who are a bit more purified. So Devas and Asuras then get together, they have an agreement that we'll share the nectar when it comes out. So they churn together despite their opposing tendencies. And the Mount Mandara is the churning rod. So you need something to churn, right? And this mountain Mandara becomes the churning rod. Vasuki, which is a serpent, becomes the rope which they're going to hold and kind of, tie it around the churning rod and keep on churning it. And Vishnu as Kurma. This is the Kurma, which is the, what do you call it? The tortoise. It kind of holds this, the tip of that mountain, so that it doesn't kind of going up and down. So he's steadying the whole thing, as it were, beneath the ocean. And at the symbolic level, this is a story, right? But stories always have some kind of symbolism, symbolic meaning. In here, ocean is the existence and the depth of the mind. And the mind has got poison, and the mind has got nectar. Both of these things are there. And the churning of the mind needs to take place. And the churning of the mind requires our ego sense of who we are and also the divine qualities which we all have. Churning together, working together. Okay? So that we need the sattva of the devas and we need the rajas of the asuras, so that that action is required, as well as the sattva, which is the higher values. Both of these things are required for us to explore the mind. Mananam, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. This is the whole process, okay? And this churning is the mananam. And here it is called manthanam. Manthanam is also another way of churning the mind, right? Thoughts in the mind. So it is symbolic of that. And before nectar comes the poison. Poison is called Rahal. This is the poison. Okay? And the first product of churning is not nectar. What comes out first is a deadly poison. And this deadly poison comes out and it can destroy the whole universe. So these guys get very scared. What is going to happen? This poison is coming out. So the poison threatens the devas, the asuras, and the world themselves. And no one knows how to contain it. And then spiritual meaning is inner practice may first resolve unresolved anger, grief, resentment. All these things will come out. As we start on our spiritual journey, all these things will start coming out. Sometimes people I've seen talking about they sit down in meditation and immediately get up from the seat of meditation, they start screaming and shouting. Why? Because in the quietness of the mind, this anger has somehow come up. This poison has come up in this churning of the mind. So the inner practice, when we start going on the spiritual journey, it may kind of bring out all these things which we have been pushing down. And the appearance of the poison doesn't mean practice has failed. Remember, if you feel more and more that something is not working right with my sadhana or my practice, doesn't mean there's a failure. Keep on doing it, because this is the poison coming out. Okay? And it may mean the churning has truly begun. When you have this, it means that this churning has truly begun. If the ocean is not churned, the poison remains hidden. But so does the nectar. Both these things are there. Okay? So then Shiva comes to the rescue. And that's why it's called Nilakantha. Why? Because through his compassion, Shiva is very compassionate. Very easy to please, but very compassionate. And the Devas and Asuras turn to Shiva when the poison threatens the creation. Moved by compassion, Shiva receives the poison. He protects life without blame or hesitation. And the blue throat now, Shiva does not swallow the poison into his whole being. And he does not spit it out. He holds it in his throat, and therefore that throat becomes Nilakantha. It becomes blue. Shiva's throat is blue, and this is the story behind it. Which means what? For you and me, what does this mean? Don't spit it out, and don't hold it back. Retain it and process it. This is what I do with my psychotherapy clients. Retain it but process it. Don't repress it. Don't spit it out. Okay? So he holds this in his throat and becomes Nilakanta. What is the meaning of that? Shiva is the one who can contain what world cannot bear. Shiva can contain the world things which the world cannot bear. Through his compassion, he is willing to do that. Holding the poison. There are three responses to suffering. Suppose we have suffering in our life. We may swallow the poison and let it become bitterness, despair, illness. We may spit it out and pass that anger and pain to other people. Okay? Shiva shows the third way. Hold it without becoming poisonous. And the throat as a threshold. The throat is the place where the inner experience becomes speech. Speech is also expression. And expression can come through many different venues, but the main thing is through our talking about it. But through body language, through facial expression, we express ourselves. To hold that in place, this inner experience reminds us to pause before reacting. Don't react, respond. Take 2 minutes or even 5 seconds just to pause before you're trying to react. And hold it so that you can process it and then say it. Containment protects both the self and the world. And here's the question, what poison in my life needs to be held with awareness and offered to Shiva? Okay? We all have some poison somewhere. We need to hold it, offer it to Shiva. This becomes a chance for us to offer it to Shiva. Okay? So, in this heat, Shravan Maas practice is cooling the heart. Abhisheka, come back to Abhisheka, pour the cooling water over the Lord who is burning with this poison now. Right? Shiva is the one who is holding this poison. It needs to be cooled. And the ritual becomes a prayer for the cooling of the anger and the ego and the restlessness. So the outer and the inner, Abhishek on Shivalinga, but also inner discipline, cooling ourselves, cooling our anger, ego, restlessness. Outer worship becomes inner transformation. Mantra becomes surrender. Om Namah Shivaya bows the restless mind before the sacred stillness. And each repetition becomes a release of reactivity. And the mantra turns poison towards purification. So this is the lesson. Do not add poison to the world. Help contain and transform it. This is the lesson which we all need to learn. Okay. Now coming back to the idea of Adhik Maas. Okay, we've still got about 10 minutes. I'll try to finish. And correction to consecration. So correction of what has happened, correction between the two cycles, the lunar cycle and the solar cycle. That correction has taken place. We are given an extra month, Adhik Maas. Adhik Maas begins as a luni-solar adjustment, and it turns into this adjustment into intensified spiritual practice. And this is what we have been talking about all along. This is a special month, and therefore this Adhik Maas, Purushottam Maas is where you get occurs, every 3 years. But the Shravan Maas, Adhik Maas coming together a long period of time, it comes after a longer time. Extra time becomes sacred opportunity for us. Purushottam Maas, which is the other name for Adhik Maas, is reverentially dedicated to Purushottam Vishnu Krishna as the supreme deity. And it is the month of devotion, japa, charity, vrata, scripture, and it is less about worldly expansion, more about inner purification, discipline, reorientation. And the question is, what do we do with time that feels extra, delayed, unplanned? This is Adhik Maas, okay? But it can happen on a daily basis. We've got some time. What are we going to do with that time? How are we going to treat that time? What do we think about that time? Something has been delayed. What are we going to do while this thing has been delayed? Or something unplanned happens. What do we do? What is our response? This is the essential question, which is this Adhik Maas is actually answering, telling us what to do. Okay? So now we just look at Purushottama in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Because this is the other part of it. Adhik Maas is Purushottama, and the Shravan Maas is Shiva. Shiva, Purushottam coming together. That's why this churning out the ocean. So now, meaning of Purushottama in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, Krishna speaks of himself as Purushottama. The term points to a supreme person. Okay, Purush, Uttam Purush. Uttam Purush is Purushottama. And terms point to supreme person beyond the perishable, imperishable. This is the highest reality. Okay, so in Advaita Vedanta we talk about the Brahman, talk about Atman, which is the absolute reality. So this is beyond the perishable, imperishable, and it equals the reality that sustains, transcends, and illumines all. This is the ultimate reality. This is Purushottama, personified as Krishna. And the time offered to Supreme, Purushottam Maas placed the extra month at the feet of the divine. And time is not really merely possessed, it is received and offered back. It is received as Purushottama, but it is offered back to Purushottama in terms of whatever spiritual practice we are going to carry out. This shifts the egoic idea of my time to sacred stewardship, sacred worship, taking time to say, this is not my time, this is a sacred time, Purushottam time. Okay? So it changes the whole perspective. And the highest use of time is not possession but consecration, making it sacred. It's not my time, I can do whatever I like, but this is consecrated time. This is the extra month. So these are the practices, devotional practices, daily mantra, prayer, Bhagavad Gita, Puranic stories, devotional remembrance. Mind is turned towards the divine, from distraction to divine. This is the pathway which we follow in terms of our spiritual practices. Ethical practices are also there. Dhanam, which is giving charity, compassion, service becomes central. So during this extra month, lots of things can be done, including seva, right? And service becomes important because this is one way we can actually train the mind, train the body, train our actions and behavior. Self-restraint in food, speech, consumption. Anger is this restraint is encouraged in all things. Self-discipline again, the month becomes a period of reorientation towards the sacred. And offer one moment, one breath, one act, one day, 1 month. This is how this orientation is going to take place. So that every moment becomes a sacred moment. And this Purushottam Maas becomes a very powerful way of rededicating the spiritual life for our spiritual journey. So this rejected Maas, okay, there is a story, small story behind it. So the Adhik Maas got very sorrowful because he said, I can't fit in anywhere. I'm an extra thing, right? An extra month here. So where are you going to place me? So in this devotional story, extra month feels unwanted, becomes dishonored, feels dishonored. The other months have identity, they've got festivals, they've got all these things, they are recognized month in terms of the days of the month, etc., etc. Whereas this Adhik Maas, there's no kind of connection with the solar calendar. So Adhik Maas feels irregular, marginal, without sacred purpose. So he approaches the Lord. The month goes to Vishnu, Krishna, and asks for dignity and meaning. So Lord does not reject it. He says, no, I can't reject you. You have to be accepted. You have to be part of this divine, system. So he gives his own name to this month, this extra month. And therefore, what was unwanted, that unwanted month which does not fit in anywhere, it is given this Lord's name itself. It becomes a very divine month, as it were, so that this rejected month becomes very sacred. So the existential meaning of Purushottam Maas, what does it mean? Rejected time, right? So many lives contain periods where we feel delayed, unproductive, unwanted. All these things are there, part of our life. Illness, grief, waiting, loss, retirement, transition, uncertainty may feel as if we are wasting our time, right? And this is what I was telling you. Somebody comes, has just retired. It feels as if life has become empty, without meaning. It feels as if I'm wasting my time, right? So Purushottam Maas says, bring even this to the divine. So you don't have to wait for Purushottam Maas. Examine your daily life. This is what the meaning is saying. Examine daily life and see what feels as if, there is this extra time which feels as if it is wasted. Rejected parts of our life A wound can become compassion, delay become patience, and failure can become humility, pause can become prayer. All these are different ways of turning this extra rejected time in terms of sacrifice, making it sacred. Nothing is spiritually meaningless when it is offered. When it is offered to the divine, everything becomes meaningful. So Shiva and Shravan, right? Shiva teaches us to face and hold poison of life. This is one of the beautiful meanings which Shiva has, to hold the poison of our life in such a way that we don't swallow it, but we don't throw it out either. We process it, we purify it, we cool it, restrain it through this inner stillness. An offering of water becomes a prayer for transformation. Purushottam and Adhik Maas, Purushottam teaches us to offer time of life, make this extra time sacred. And Adhik Maas emphasizes making things sacred, consecration, devotion, charity, grace. And extra month becomes sacred when dedicated to the Supreme. So Hari and Hara get together. Hari is Purushottam, Hara is Shiva. And they come together to give us these 2 months which are absolutely, in terms of spiritual practices, become very important. Shiva purifies the heart, Purushottama actually with this extra time of Adhik Maas makes this time to be sacred. So living sacred time today, what are we going to do? Because this seems like it is something which I'm not used to. So how do we kind of go about? Set aside even 5 minutes for mantra, prayer, silence, scripture, begin the day by remembering rather than rushing. This is what actually it means. Why am I talking about Shravan and Adhik Maas and the grace of Purushottama? Is that how are we going to bring this thing into our daily thinking? So hold the poison wisely. When anger, hurt, all these things are there, remember Nilakanta, remember Shiva, do not swallow it destructively, or pass it on to others. Hold, cool off, and offer it to the sacred, divine. And transform the unwanted, bring delay, disappointment, uncertainty before the divine, and as a possible place and a space and a time for grace. Okay, so this is what all these things, Shravan Maas, Adhik Maas,
If anybody wishes to ask a question, grab hold of this from me so we can provide a little bit of context to the Q&A. Anyone start with questions?
Thank you, Ramesh Bhai, for that. Understanding is becoming clear about this personal month and all that. One thing regarding the time and how you said how everything fits in our time. What I'm getting confused nowadays is when it comes to Diwali time, before we had Diwali and Best Horas following the next day. Recently, the past few years, it's happened. There's Diwali, then there's Dhoko, and there is Best Horas. Yeah. Can you just clarify how this come up or what it is, please?
So it is the same kind of system here. So this, it keeps on changing, right? The lunar cycle, because of the days which are there. So every year, if you imagine that 11 days are, getting lost. So in that 11 days, these festivals and this, things which we call the New Year, etc., they keep on changing slightly, right? Just like the phases of the moon will keep on changing, right? So that when it comes to this difference in time, it is because of this difference between the solar and the lunar cycle. That's why we have this, Dhoko, what you call Dhoko is that kind of 1 day in between, right? So that means that that particular number of hours or 1 day is because of this kind of synchronization between the solar and the lunar calendar.
I cannot recall when I was young that was happening, but recently now, or I'm noticing now.
Yeah. No, I think it used to happen because I remember this kind of thing happening during those times. So basically it's explained by this kind of discrepancy and asynchronization between the lunar and the solar time.
Thank you, Hari and Ramesh Kaka. Question is, when you mention about the Vedanta symbolism of the human mind being the ocean, so what exactly is the nectar then, the ambrosia that comes out? What's the symbolic meaning? Yeah, Amrita, thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Tushar, right? Okay. So you heard of Amrita Bindu Upanishad?
Yes, nectar of immortality.
Amrita, you must have studied as well, right? So the Amrita is what there, right? Amrita, the bindu of Amrita, right? Just a drop of that nectar. What is the drop of that nectar is the highest experience of the self, right? So when we talk about the poison, 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 that is the ego, this is the me and the mind. This me and mind has to be purified, purified, purified until the nectar starts coming out. What is that nectar? The truth, the highest truth, which we also have within us. It is hidden away, that essence of ourselves is hidden away. We cannot experience it right now because all the ego things are present there, right? So through the purification, through this sadhana, through our, mantra japa and everything else, that poison keeps on coming out. We get purified. And then finally the nectar comes out, which is the most, highest wonderful experience of nirvikalpa samadhi.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi. I know that when milk is offered on Shivling, it's for good health, but they offer ghee as well, don't they? I wanted to know the significance for the ghee, please, and
all
other.
kinds of things are offered, right? So it depends on, sometimes it depends on, different regions, different, communities do different things, but only slight variations are there, right? Because sometimes it has been passed from family to family, generation to generation. So then it becomes slightly different. But at the end of the day, it is the Abhishek which is the important thing, right? And as long as we kind of understand the inner symbolism of that, I think that is the most important. But these are regional variations all over the place, right? So in South India, some of the things are done differently in North India because of the regional differences and how, it is celebrated in different ways as well.
Hi, thank you. It's very interesting to listen to you. Just wanted to ask about the Hindu calendar and the datas. The information, the advice written on each sheet. How old is it? And to give an idea of how ancient our knowledge of Sanatana Dharma is.
Yeah, when we talk about, the ancient calendar, Vikram, what we call Vikram Saman, right? So it is taken to be right from the Vedas, which, one way of talking about time is that there is no measurement of time, as it were, because time is infinite, right? So in that way, we can see that some of these practices have been there. There are two ways of explaining this, right? One is that within one particular cycle of the universe coming to existence and going out. So that is one what we call kalpa. And one kalpa is the day and night of Brahma. Brahmaji, one day and night is one universe coming and destroying. Now, if you think in terms of that, it means that there are this cosmic order which is there, and cosmic order in terms of this solar and lunar cycles which are going on, right? So it means that it has been in existence since the time of the creation of the universe. That's one way of thinking about it. The other way is that even this kalpa, they are repeated after one dissolution of one universe, another universe comes into being. And that has been happening infinite number of times. In other words, you cannot even measure time in that way, right? And the third way, in fact, is to say that the truth is transcending this reality itself. In other words, that ultimate reality, there is no time, there is no causality, there is nothing there except Sat Chit and Anand. So we can go right up to that point. But what I'm saying is that, it has been existent for a long time. That's all okay.
Just one final question. I know you mentioned, and I was the only one that, by the way, very inspiring, very knowledgeable, and I think it's absolutely fantastic and awesome what you've said. But my question, because I am a great believer in astrology and I've always followed astrology, although my mum says sometimes you believe in God so much, why do you need to follow astrology? Mm-hmm. What is meant to be will be. But am I correct in saying, or could I ask, is this something, I know I was the only one, so is it important, astrology? And it's important to me. I feel that I get my strength and, my kinds from it. So I just want to ask whether or not, what your perspective is in it.
Yeah, so as I mentioned that it is part of the Vedas, right? It is Vedanga, so which means that it is also to do with your spiritual life. Now, in order to explain astrology, I have to explain the principle of karma. Principle of karma means that every action has got a reaction, okay? And we have been accumulating all this karma in all our lives which we have lived. The whole storehouse of all the karma is called, Sanchita karma. This is your warehouse, it's like a big warehouse, all these karmas are there. For this life, you have bought a portion of that Sanchita karma to live in this particular life. So this is your prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is actually what astrological horoscope is telling you. What is your prarabdha karma for this life? And if you know that you're going to go through this kind of challenges, this is the kind of life you're going to have, this is the kind of personality you're going to have, then it reflects back onto your spiritual life. Why? Because it tells you this is a landscape of your life. This is the landscape of your personality. This is how you are going to adjust your life and your thought and your intention and your action, and your life stages are going to be this way adjusted as you go along to get the maximum benefit for your spiritual life. You see what I mean? So therefore, astrology becomes very important because it's a guide of your journey in this life, so that you can keep on adjusting whatever you need to adjust to keep yourself aligned with your spiritual goal. Right? Okay. So thank you very much, and thank you, Ramedab and Raju, for giving me the invitation, and all the friends of Oxford Center. Really great to see you again. It's been a long time. I've been teaching in India for 3 years at Chinmaya University. So I haven't had time to kind of come and give talks here, but very nice to be here again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.